reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network.
And we're live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to From One Geek to Another, Gamer Etiquette. We're glad to see all of you here, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on a it's not a Sunday morning, it is a Monday morning, which makes it even awesomer because this means it's the fourth day of PAX. All right, so what we're going to be discussing today is gamer etiquette. And we figured that a good way to start the day would be to talk about strange gamer etiquette. So I'd like each of you to think about, each of our panelists here, to give us an example of one of the strangest gamer etiquette rules that you have ever run into. Amber, I know you had an interesting one when we were talking earlier today.
Yep. Put me on the spot, Jeff.
Of course. You were the one who spoke up.
Ours was that before we could game, we had to clean up the kitchen. Make sure all the dishes were cleaned, all the cookware put away, and only then could we sit down and start rolling our dice. Of course, let me put this in a bit of context, though. This was at a dorm on a college campus in a shared kitchen. So, to make sure the place was cleaned up for other people to use a kitchen, we had to clean up before we spent the next, I don't know, however long, gaming.
So gamer etiquette, while it might sound weird at first glance, or it may be something that you don't really understand the need behind, it always has some context, something that makes it fit into the greater scheme of the game or the group that you're being involved in. Did anyone else have any strange gamer etiquettes that they have run into?
So this wasn't really a bit of etiquette for the host so much as the guests, in that one of the GMs I played with had the rule, wear pants. And you'd think he wouldn't have to have this as a rule. But it's a little uncomfortable when you and 5 people you barely know go over to a guy's house to play D&D, and one of them just says, hey, I'm kind of uncomfortable. You mind if I take off my pants? That was a long 2-hour dungeon crawl.
Yes, I do.
So, gamer etiquette doesn't just have to be something that we cover with don't touch other people's dice. It can be things that are simply how you interact with other people. Now that we've gotten an idea of some of the more strange gamer etiquette things, I figure we should meet our panelists. Why don't we start down at the end there? Go ahead and introduce yourself and give a little bit about what you do in gaming.
My name's Randy Schoeneman. I work for a board game company called Steve Jackson Games. Nice. I work for a board game company called Steve Jackson Games. Right now I'm their retail liaison and convention manager, so I go to a lot of shows and talk to a lot of people and then call a lot of stores. That's what I do right now.
My name is Ben Mandal. I'm currently a writer for a site called Gaming Trend, and in my off time I'm also working on my own site, The Art of the Table. Been GMing for far too long, and I'm just, the random crazy guy that likes to talk about his own opinions far too much.
People's mics, apparently. My name is Amber Eager. I'm the chief cat herder for a small live-action role-playing nonprofit called LARP Lab. I'm also a LARP academic and archivist, and like Ben, I enjoy sharing my love of my hobby, LARP, tabletop, gaming in general.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Jess Hartley. For the last 10 years or so, I've been a writer, editor, and game developer in the tabletop role-playing game industry. Most of my work has been for White Wolf, now Onyx Path, for their World of Darkness material. I also write an ongoing geek etiquette and advice column for Gygax magazine called, strangely enough, One Geek to Another.
My name is Julie Hahn. I've been working in many various facets of the gaming industry, from tabletop board games with cheap-ass games, collectible miniature and card games with WizKids, and casual games for your cell phone or PC with Sandlot Games, and Xbox. It's a small company, I'm not sure if you've heard of it. And I'm currently, I'm out of the game industry a little bit right now. I make toys for Funko. So I've been doing this type of stuff for a while.
And my name is Jeff Fazenfest. I am a veteran GM like Ben, and I am here to herd the panelists and make sure that they stay at least on the stage while we're discussing. Well, we haven't decided that yet.
You're not the boss of me!
All right, let's start out by having a discussion of what is etiquette and how does etiquette apply to a gamer or a gaming group? Jess?
I heard a very, very good definition of the difference between etiquette and manners that I loved. It was, etiquette is knowing which fork to use, and manners is how you handle it when someone else doesn't. And I think both are important in the gaming community. So etiquette is what the assumed set of social contracts and rules that we follow is, and manners is how we handle it when something happens outside of that paradigm.
Yes, Ben?
Part of the definition is what it is not. Etiquette is not intended to trip you up. Etiquette is not intended to be arcane or hard to understand. And it is not intended to be a static thing that does not change with the time or community. The other assumption people often make is that etiquette is always about enforcing good behavior. There can actually be etiquette for enforcing bad behavior, which any of you who have maybe played in the online gaming community have bumped into.
Anyone else?
Jess kind of stole the words right out of my mouth.
She's just succinctly said what I would have said in a lot more words and more rambling.
All right. We have a couple of topics that we would like to cover, but since we're an intimate group here, I wanted to make sure we cover things that you guys wanted to hear about as well. So we have 2 microphones on either side of the center row there. Let us know if you have a couple of questions, a couple of topics that you guys wanted to hear about here, so we can kind of make sure that we are being good hosts today and are reaching what you guys are interested in.
Intimate panel in a giant room.
Exactly. So, does anyone have anything specific that they wanted to hear about or that they were interested in listening to?
People bringing kids to game night?
All right, so step 1, introduce yourself. We want to hear who you are and where you're from.
I'm Leslie German. I'm from Sultan, Washington. Yay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Leslie. All right, so bringing kids to game night.
It's the only way to get them to play 10 years from now. If they aren't going with you when they're little, then it's just something mom and dad do, and you've got a lot lower chance of them showing up. A lot of it, as far as the etiquette go, I would say some people aren't comfortable around kids, and some kids are disruptive. So if you have a plan, like the etiquette for the group will always rule. If everybody's got kids, you probably just have the big ones watch the little ones. But knowing what you're going to do when your kids go nuts or fall asleep or need to eat, or telling everyone at the table, as long as he's being good, I'm fine, but if like something goes nuts, someone else is going to have to play a couple turns for me. Really, as far as etiquette, just establish what's going to happen before it happens. Nobody wants to be surprised by you leaving in the middle of a 3-hour game.
Well, and I guess the context is a specific situation where somebody who we hadn't had in the group before, we had a long-running board game night, brought their kids, and they were so harsh to those kids. You know, you sit and be quiet, and I didn't know how to deal with that because my he games, he knows what to do, and the parents were just so incredibly harsh and kind of put a damper on the whole evening. Anyway, just...
That almost sounds, it doesn't sound like it's as much of a problem with the children as with the parents' interaction with other kids. And that's, like, I've never been on a panel before. When I sat up here, he leaned over and told me, okay, you know, at these panels, it's not as formulaic. Jump in if you have something to add. That's etiquette. That's the baseline of etiquette. When those people came over and they started going nuts, if everybody just shies back and doesn't add anything, they're taking control of the etiquette of your group. If someone had leaned over and said, look, it's all right, your kid's not breaking anything. I have kids, I understand. Just let them go. They would have been far more likely that they would have fallen in line with the etiquette of the group rather than reestablishing new etiquette.
But that can be really challenging too, because one of the absolute trickiest things in a social context is dealing with different parenting styles. And if they were being that repressive because they were worried that their child was going to disrupt the group, that would be one thing. But if that's their normal parenting style and you tell them, hey, mellow out, you know, it's okay, just chill out, that could be really offensive to them.
Can be. In the end, if it really makes you uncomfortable and it's disruptive of the game night, I mean,
yeah,
you don't ask them back, especially if their kids are with.
That was kind of the end of it, but that just kind of threw the whole group, and nobody really knew what to.
That's a hijacking of the group's etiquette.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I would consider, whatever type of game night it is there someone or someones who are the designated hosts? This could either be the person whose house it is, or if maybe you're meeting up at a restaurant, you know, who helps organize it? Mm-hmm. And maybe the host could take them aside at some point. There's that saying, you know, praise publicly but criticize privately. It doesn't even need to be criticizing. It could just be, oh, hey, Amber, great to see you. Glad you made it back. I just wanted to let you know, while I'm not in the middle of the entire gaming area, you don't need to worry about this thing, but I'm saying it in a positive manner. I don't want to say, man, your parenting sucks. I just want to...
See, we loved having your kids there. I'm hoping that maybe next time you come, I know that it can be really nerve-wracking having your kids in a new social situation. We would love to set up a area where the kids can, you know, have their own fun and that sort of thing, so that none of the parents have to worry about, you know, them making too much noise. Look, we've set up this other room where, you know, there are all these different options for them to do so that they won't do that. And I just wanted to let you know we really enjoyed having them there. They were no trouble at all. That might reassure the parent who was, you know, being tight-laced because they were worried about the impact. I mean, quite often we see most of the problems that I've had with parenting and gaming has been the opposite. It's been parents who bring their kids to something and then just expect that the group is going to watch them, or don't, you know, they'll come into an area that's not child-proofed and don't watch their kids because they're so involved in the game, or that sort of thing. So I mean, maybe they just need a little bit of permission to loosen up a bit.
And realize there are some people with social anxiety issues or problems, and I know this very personally because I've got major social anxiety. And one of the things that happens is that my behavior changes greatly when I get anxious. And so I get more snippy to everybody around me when I'm anxious. And so if this is a new situation they're walking into and they're anxious and their kids are doing something that annoys them a little tiny bit in a social home setting, and that, if they're anxious, they'll blow up more. So taking them aside is a great way of saying, are you okay? Is that, you know, it's okay, you guys are welcome here.
Yeah, and at the end, if push comes to shove, as you've done, if push comes to shove and they're obviously not going to mesh with the group, and they're not going to work with the established etiquette, there's nothing wrong with saying, we loved having you guys, however, I think here's some other groups that might be a better fit for you with your current situation as it is, or that would be better with your kids or their age or whatever have you.
Or come to this other thing that we're doing. So that way they don't think that you're you're
Right.
excluding them as
Right.
people, or
Never,
you
but-
don't like them, maybe that situation is just not the right mesh for them.
For them.
Maybe a
But
kid
providing-
park day,
Right,
or
but providing other opportunities to mesh with them in other venues and other formats.
And they obviously play with much kinder gamer groups than I do, and that's their etiquette of their gaming group is way different because we are monsters in my group.
And that's perfect, Randy, to lead into our next concept. So you had the family come in and they weren't sure the etiquette, the social structure of your group, and it wasn't something they knew how to learn automatically, so they fell into their patterns, the patterns that they had developed. So that is one of the most important things about having etiquette in social structures. You want to make sure that there's something that when you are new to a group, you have a way to learn the etiquette of the group that you're moving into so that you can mesh with that group, and that if you're leading a group or you're hosting a group, you have a way of teaching people who are new to the group about that etiquette. And that was something that I think we should touch on next, is how do you learn the etiquette of a new gaming group or a new social group when you interact with them? I know that you had some very interesting thoughts on this, Ben.
Well, it's been said that there are two fundamental types of groups in regards to this. There are groups that are, I think it's called Learn First versus Questions Aloud. There are lots of different names. But the basic idea is that some groups don't want you to come in as a noob. They want you to already know what the expectations are, both socially and participatory-wise, versus other groups that are, new players welcome, no experience necessary, come on, sit down, we'll teach you everything. A good example, if you've been wandering around PAX, a lot of the tabletop board games, RPGs, miniature games, that community in general, very accepting of new players. It's totally fine. We'll get you in a demo game.
We want more people.
And whereas some of the more hardcore games, such as EVE Online, or the really hardcore MOBA community, can have, shall we say, a steeper bar to entry where the expectation is, oh, did you join a public game? Then either you know how to play or prepare to be crushed. And don't bitch about it, because when I showed up and didn't know how to play, I was crushed, and that's just how things are here. And because that is the greater community, you are going to have to deal with that norm to an extent. It wouldn't be reasonable of me to, say, show up in the EVE community and just start spamming public chat with the kind of questions that would be perfectly fine if I show up in the Paizo area and say, I've never played Pathfinder, how I roll dice.
There's a big, we talked earlier about the responsibilities of the host, and I agreed with a lot of what was said on the panel, but somebody brings in a new person. There is somebody who sets up the party, but there's somebody who gets you through the door. And if you're Kyle's brother and Kyle's been a member of this group, and it's your first time there, I think it's Kyle's responsibility to come and say, look, this is how you're expected to act. This is a big no-no. Or, hey, you're really disrupting this stuff, and you're not going to be invited back. If you bring someone into a group, you've taken upon yourself a responsibility to kind of guide the actions of that person, make them aware of what the etiquette of the group is, and help correct them in whatever way is socially acceptable for your group. That's your job once you say, hey, come and join our group. Like, if you're the guy getting them through the door, you gotta also be the guy walking them around the party.
And if you're the guest, it's also your job to be an avid learner. I mean, you can't know everything, and there will be social contracts that are invisible until you stumble into them. But be alert to the clues that are going on from other people, watch what they're doing, that sort of thing, so that, and ask. I mean, if you're a smoker and you come to my household, because we have smoke allergies, we're gonna send you out to the curb. And that's, kind of one of the weirdnesses of our household, but there's specific reasons for it. And if somebody comes into my front room and lights up a cigarette, they're gonna be very politely invited to go to the curb. So, just.
And a good guest, when he comes next time, if he's re-invited, would be thinking ahead, well, I'm gonna get a cigarette before I get there, and then I'll offer to run and get the pizza so that I can have another cigarette break about an hour in, and then I'll get another one, and then like plan out your cigarette breaks. I mean, 'cause
And building off of what you said about, if Kyle invites his brother, if I'm Kyle, my expectations for that night should change a little bit. If normally it's going to be 4 hours of hardcore board gaming with no breaks, the night that I'm bringing my brother, I'm no longer expecting that I am going to get my 4 hours of hardcore gaming, because I know I need to take part of my focus on how's he doing. Even if he's sitting at the same table with me, I need to take some of my focus off of my own happiness. And if he's sitting at another table or playing with a different group, then I really need to take the time to go check in on him. And maybe tonight isn't the night for that hardcore advanced civilization game I've been wanting. Maybe I'm going to play something light and quick, like, say, Flux or Zombie Dice, so I can pretty easily just duck out between rounds and keep an eye on him. And next week it'll be back to me and I can focus entirely on what I want to do.
Well, and I want to speak up as we've talked on being the person who brings someone, talked about the person who's being brought, but I want to also look at it from the host perspective. Host, the guild leader, and that perspective, because I think they have a responsibility too to help set those ground rules and help start that establishment of that social contract and that etiquette. One of the things I've done, whether it's leading a guild, GMing or DMing a group, working with a LARP organization and working with a chapter, is we always spell out key important features. What's expected, when games are, when to show up, all that type of stuff.
What the big no-nos
what the big no-nos are, and not only what I expect of the players and the members, but also what they should be able to expect of me, because there are certain things they might not know to expect, and I like to make sure they know what they can expect of me, so that way they can call me on the carpet if I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. And there's also some gamer etiquette about playing in public spaces. So I run a game night at a coffee shop. One of the expectations is you buy something from the coffee shop, because they are letting us have a table there for extended hours, and we are bringing people there to enjoy their coffee.
We often run LARPs either at conventions where there may be hotel guests that are not, like PAX, where there's hotel guests who are not part of the group, or in public parks, libraries, colleges, that kind of thing. And part of the extremely well spelled out expectation is that if you are playing a vampire and doing something that would be offensive or creepy or uncomfortable for the public, and you interact with the public, you walk into the same elevator space or they're walking by too close, it's game off for a second. You pull it down so that you don't freak out the 60-year-old lady that's walking by to her church group, because that's not okay. That's impolite. It's bad PR for your group. It's going to give Gamers and Geeks a bad reputation. But those are the kinds of things that people don't necessarily think about unless they're spelled out. So it's the responsibility of the host.
And I follow you on about that. I have seen that happen.
I have had that happen to me because of what I looked like at my very first gaming convention, Origins. I had somebody come up to me and do this, and I'm like, okay. And then just loom at me. I'm like, okay, I don't know what you're doing. And I didn't LARP for years because of that. I was like, that was LARPing? What? I don't want to know.
They were using, so for those of you who don't LARP, an in-character symbol that they expected that she would know, because she looks like someone who might be involved in their LARP. And so then they were, interacting in a way that was socially unacceptable because they were bringing her into their reality that, that she had not consented to.
Pretty much no matter what group you're in, your actions do reflect. The smaller the group, the more so your actions change the group, and everybody's going to remember what you did, whether it's good or bad. If you started bringing sodas the first night you came, and then you just kept doing it, the next people who come it's a weird thing. They'll kind of think that's a part of it, even if nobody said anything, and they'll start bringing stuff depending on their personalities. But you
They'll
can have it,
get mad when you stop.
yeah, well, you can have it the other way too. If everybody does kind of a potluck thing, and then someone starts showing up and starts missing out, you've pulled away from the group, and now people think it's acceptable to skip out on that. If your group is a group of monsters and you do, like, it's your thing to go shock people out in public spaces, that's going to be like, whether it's positive or negative, your actions regarding just everyone are what people are going to think of in your group and about your group. So if you want a more positive group in the MOBA community, you have to take giant steps in some communities, because there are some pretty caustic individuals in the MOBA community. But you can find great ones too, who will say, hey, look, if I was new once too, I don't need you to get harassed the way I was. Let's go to this other board. I got 4 or 5 people. We'll do an all talk, and we'll deal with this, and we'll kind of train you up a little bit. I know in EVE especially, there were like large groups that was their thing. They wanted to train. They wanted a great game. If you want a great group, you've got to kind of make a great group. Otherwise, it just is what it is.
Or find a mentor, find a
Yeah.
gamer that you really, really respect and say, hey, can I tag along? Can I learn from you? I want to play games and I want to be a better person. And just try and emulate that.
And sometimes they say no.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things to consider is, for lack of a term, let's call it good exclusion versus bad exclusion. Bad exclusion would be, girls don't fucking play with us. Or, what, you're 30, you're too friggin' old, go away. That would be bad exclusion. But at the same time, there are times where a little bit of exclusionary can help define your group dynamic. If I want a gaming group that drinks, that cusses, that is very politically incorrect in their jokes, and I've established that with 5 of my friends, and we hang out and we get our geek on, and you show up, and I've invited you, and you just, oh, Ben, such language. I don't feel this is appropriate. Well, I'm sorry, this is my group. We've already established this is our dynamic. While, you may be a great person, maybe this isn't the group for you. Because you, as the new person entering, generally are not going to have the right to say, hey guys, your social system is wrong.
That's difficult though, because when you extrapolate that out to entire communities, then we get into things like, well, it's okay to harass women at conventions because if they don't want to keep up with the old boys club, then they shouldn't be here. I think that you were the one earlier who said that etiquette is an ongoing and changing thing, and that there is the opportunity for a group to change that focus if there are positive reasons for them to do so.
So where do we draw the line then between, acceptable, I like to drink and my jokes are a little off color versus, no, Ben, you're actually being a dick, that's not okay?
It's more about a new person coming in should do their best to come to the level of the group. If you're not comfortable with the level of the group, then it isn't the group for you. If you don't think that having an old boys club is appropriate, then that particular group's probably not for you. If you really like the game, you might need to make basically a subgroup inside of it where on Thursday nights at this time, under this heading or with these 3 equal signs out in front of the names of the game boards, that's what that group means. And you can't necessarily change it in a big way, but you are changing it even if you're not willing to come to the level of the group. When you don't go in, you're changing it, unfortunately, you're changing it in a worse way because you were a positive that didn't happen. So the group tends to just get more negative or more, it may seem negative to you, but they may think of it as a positive thing. It just feeds back on itself. It will become more pure, whatever it is.
And I think that at this point, something that we should think about and we should talk on, especially in consideration with the good exclusion versus bad exclusion and Jess's concerns that people will just translate, well, we're being good exclusionary into we're preventing people we don't like from playing with us. Preventing too many people is public versus private gaming groups. and talking about the differences in etiquette when you're gaming in a public forum or you're in a publicly available area versus when you're at home with your best buddies gaming in your own gaming group.
And don't forget, guys, those mics are hot. If you've got a question,
Yeah.
get up.
Yes.
And if you think we're wrong, if you want to
add
tell us we've
questions
got
in.
it all wrong, please, by all means, yell at us. Politely.
Politely tell us when we're wrong. Please.
Hi, my name is Bruno Valdez. I live in Arkansas. I'm originally from Mexico. But the thing that I want to bring to the panel is MMOs. I mean, right now you've been focusing mostly on small groups like LARPing and game nights. But MMOs, you have your guilds, but you're also interacting with thousands of other players who are not part of your guild. What's your net etiquette about that?
If I understand your question correctly, you're asking like how do you kind of carve out your niche in a giant world with lots of people over in these private groups? Is that what you're asking?
More like how do you maintain etiquette when you are interacting with other people who are not really part of your group?
A lot of games offer you controls to put limits on that interaction. Parental controls, if you need them, are usually in place in most games produced in the US. The ability to turn off channels in the chat box that you don't want to be a part of, that's very, very powerful. Also the ability to establish new channels so you can start, well, you know what, I'd rather have a PC version of this, so we're going to turn on parental controls and start a channel that's always available, always just automatically started. You have to take big steps in MMOs, and it usually results in you almost form a guild or a sub-guild when it happens.
I'm thinking, I've almost found I'm an MMO player too, is I've almost found that when I have to do stuff like that, whether it's instituting parental controls, starting a separate chat area, getting rid of like trade chat or particular level chat or whatever, that I end up finding a group of people I end up wanting to game with. Matter of fact, this has happened. And we end up forming a guild, and unintentionally, but it's happened. And then we end up just staying together because we all get along so well. A lot of what I've found too is I don't tend to play games unless I know other people that play. So when I'm going to have somebody else in the game that I can interact with, if everybody else out there is just being a complete dick and violating rule number 1.
Who here has played MMOs that you didn't know anybody else in the game before you started playing? Wow, that's not my experience, so it's kind of interesting.
Some MMOs are great. The advertising gets you want to get in, and,
yeah.
but I've found that if I do even if I'm playing a game where I have friends and maybe my work schedule shifts, so despite the fact that I joined with friends, I'm the only one playing, I find myself doing a lot of solo because it is a great big world out there, and I have met a lot of people in it, and most of them are jerks sometimes, so I don't want to, it's not always true, but in a game, especially if I'm just there for the fun, maybe I don't want to make a friend tonight, maybe I just want to go run off by myself, or yeah, maybe I want to go beat something up,
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think a lot of it's just the capacity to be able to shut off the channels that you don't want to hear and you don't want to interact with. And I have no problem as well using the ignore list and ignoring individual people if there's only 1 or 2 people in a particular channel that are really bugging me too.
To touch on that, actually, in general etiquette, both American society and geek society, we try to be, accepting. Oh, did my friend say something that was a little weird? I'm sure he's just having a bad day. We'll keep talking. It's no biggie. And we often extend that to new people. Oh, did Randy say something that creeped me out? Well, I'm sure he's really a good guy. I'll give him another chance. Don't be afraid to set the bar very tight in an MMO.
I want to give you a phrase. Dude, that's not cool. That is the easiest, most thing, something happens. Dude, that's not cool. And it works really well in tabletop games when you're in person with somebody. But I don't play very many MMOs, so I don't know how well that would work
That,
in MMO.
in my personal experience, feel free to disagree, that would work very poorly. Because the people who are trolling you want that.
Yes.
And
I don't play MMOs. For
anyone who's been online for a while, you've probably heard the phrase, don't feed the trolls. Do not be afraid to immediately do that. If someone starts, and I can clearly tell, you're trolling me, you're farming my resource drops, you're killing every monster before I can tag it, you are here to just make my life annoying, cool, you're on Insta Ignore, and I'm gonna go somewhere else. I'm not going to waste any time in this type of situation saying, dude, that's not cool. Because, thanks to the anonymity of the internet, I don't think they're going to give me any serious credence. I don't think we're going to have any chance of connecting and saying, Amber, you're really not being a friendly person today. No, I'm just going to assume you're a troll.
Dude, that's not cool.
I'm sorry, I put you on Ignore, so
And something else to think about here is something that Ben just talked about. You should always feel free to walk away, whether it's from a gaming group that you're not meshing with, that is making you feel uncomfortable, or from an area or a party in an MMO that is acting in a way that you don't like. Maybe they're handling loot drops in a way that you don't feel is fair. You always have the option to walk away from that group or that social situation, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
If you don't feel comfortable, take yourself out of the situation.
I stopped playing MMOs because I got the, oh my god, you're a girl, too many times.
Yeah, and
That's the politest part.
yeah, and on the opposite side of that, don't hesitate to remove yourself from a situation that you don't feel comfortable in. Is also on the other side, if you're the host, the guild leader, whatever have you, the head of staff, head of plot, whatever, don't hesitate to understand that you can't please everybody. So pick the type of people you want to please and focus on pleasing them. Because you can't please everybody out there. It's impossible.
And having a firm statement about what your, as the organizer, the leader, about what your social contracts and your expectations are, will go a long ways towards that. If you've said right out front, hey, listen, dudes, we keep everything, PG-13 rated. If you're cool with that, that's awesome. We'd love you to have a part of it. And then that makes it a lot easier later on when, they're going off to say, everybody was warned. This is what we do. You can bring it back in, or you can go someplace else where you're going to have more fun.
Or hey, listen, dudes, we are totally a trolling raiding party, and we are all about making people mad. So if you don't like that, I'll troll you.
And that's one of the greatest things about MMOs especially, is if you don't find the community that you like right in front of you, MMOs have the tools for you to create that community. You don't like the social contract of most of the groups you're running into? Start acting the way that you want to be reacted to, and have other people who like that start joining you, and you'll build a community of your own there.
And yes, I can very much attest to that, because myself and a friend, we are co-guild leaders of a small guild, a multi-game guild, and that's exactly what happened. We were once members of the same guild, and we realized that we weren't quite meshing, but we got along fabulously well. And so we started just going from game to game, and along the way, it was this attrition. Another one person would join us, and they meshed with us, and there was another person, they meshed with us, and now there's like a good 6 to 12 of us who are on at various points of the day, and we all get along fabulously well. We've built our own guild because of just that simple fact. We couldn't find the community we wanted, so we built one.
I think we've got another question here.
Hey folks. So we've established a few principles in our conversation. Many of those principles align together. Sometimes they don't. And I was wondering what sort of sticky etiquette situations you all have faced, and which of the principles applied in what situations, how you sorted them out.
Okay, so let's
That's a great question.
Let's get you get an introduction first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who are you and where are you from?
Hi, I'm Nat. I'm local. I've been gaming since I was 7. Started tabletop. I play everything, MMOs to board games.
Sounds good. All right. So The question was, what sticky social situations have you guys run into, and how do we apply some of the various principles we've talked about here to resolving those? So, as Jess said earlier, maybe more on the manners that you handle a breach in social etiquette.
Usually the big ones pop up when something brand new happens, whether it's in a video game or in a board game or just at your house. When something new is implemented and you have no established rules for how it's going to go down, nobody knows what's going to go on. And when you feel like you should look around and see what everybody else is doing, you need to realize that everyone else is probably looking around trying to see what everyone else is doing. So whoever has established themselves as the guild leader, or whoever's throwing the party at the coffee shop or whatever, they need to step forward and solve those weird, sticky, odd situations. Because it's weird once. After that, it's old hat.
So do you have any examples that you personally have had to deal with?
For gamer etiquette, I play with monsters a lot of times, and really, I have limits. Like, to be mean to each other is one thing, but to have other people come in and be mean to them, when you're in that sort of a group, it's a lot harder to have a sticky situation because you're kind of pushing towards the outlandish. So the sticky situations are really when you have very, very tight, controlled etiquette in a certain direction. If your etiquette is, yes, you can be polite to people, but when I know you and I have destroyed you, I'm going to laugh at you and then with you and then at you. You know.
And hopefully with you some more.
Right, and you'll do it to me next week. It's a lot harder. Those sticky situations usually arise from people trying to be kind. And if you keep that in mind, it's just try to be kind to them, I guess. If it doesn't feel sticky to you and it does to somebody else, quite likely they're a good person. And,
Does this mean I'm not invited to your social gaming groups?
No, you are, as long as you're willing to, as long as you are comfortable coming to the level of the etiquette in the group. Everyone is welcome, but realize when you go, the rest of us will be laughing.
So I started playing a role-playing game with a group of my friends, and I got stuck as the cleric. And I was the cause of the sticky social situation because I got so bored I'd fall asleep. And so during the game, they'd say, wake up the narcoleptic cleric. And so Julie? What? Okay, healed. And then I'd fall back asleep.
And little sign says, I heal you.
I realized that I need to have more of a fighter when I'm playing role-playing games, but also they took me aside and said, so caffeine? Coffee? What do we need to do so you can participate and be part of the game? And that was a great way of doing it. Instead of, you can't be part of us anymore, you fall asleep every time. And
how can we help you?
Yeah.
I love the phrase failing forward because you always learn the most by the times you don't succeed. And we're not trained in this as gamers. We're trained that you don't get the XP until the monster is defeated or the quest is turned in. No, in real life, you fuck up, that monster kills you, you learn something. And I will admit that I may have made one or two tiny snafus over the years, but only one or two. And that is occasionally how I learned best what my group's expectations were. In my personal example, I was running a Forgotten Realms campaign. We'd been playing together for over 2 years, and I didn't realize just how tightly knit that made us until I invited a girl I was trying to impress to play D&D with us one night.
That is the ultimate goal. Yes, it is. It's awesome.
It's how you impress the right girls.
I was going with more on
Anyone who's going to put up with me, that's the way she's going to get impressed.
And that is about etiquette. That is, if they aren't comfortable in your group and you are, maybe Maybe they don't belong there.
Well, in this case, like, if you'd have asked me before that night, what's your etiquette, I would have said, oh, we're pretty typical gamers, nothing special, just, don't be a dick. But then she came, she tried to play with us, and she was used to very planning-heavy groups. Before combat, we need to talk about which buff spells we're using and what our tactics are. My group, we kick down the door, we charge. So when those two playstyles met head-on, she was, shall we say, a little bit frustrated, as were the rest of the group going, why the hell are you wasting our time? There's shit to kill.
Drop the clipboard, pick up the sword, that's your guy.
And it wasn't until we had that confrontation of styles that we realized, oh, this is our play style. We've just gotten so used to it, we didn't realize that this was our thing. And it did also result in realizing, you're a great woman. You should not be part of this D&D group.
I manage a community for one of my various projects, and kind of providing an example on more of a community aspect. It's a Facebook community. In the About section, there's a little section of kind of the rules, and it's one of the key rules to set this bit of etiquette was you stay on topic. This community is for this X particular topic, you stay on topic to keep things from being completely derailed. And one of the individuals who just joined the group, posted an advertisement in blatant conflict with that policy. I brought it down. And they eventually asked, well, what's up? Why was my ad brought down? And it was an incredibly polite explanation of, the policy is this. I'm glad you want to promote this, but this is our policy. There are plenty of other places that you can promote this if you want. Here's a few other options. But this is the focus of this group, and we're trying to keep the focus on this rather than it becoming a spam fest for ads. So I think it's also not being afraid to enforce that etiquette either as necessary. And don't be afraid if you're the host, the guild leader, whatever, to enforce that if necessary. Just be polite about it.
I think some of the stickiest situations I've got into in terms of specifically gaming stuff involves when you have people who are part of the same community or group but want to get very, very different things out of their experience. In the LARP group, the LARP club that I belong to, there's a lot of paradigm headbutting between folks who are very PvP, they want to go player versus player with their characters, versus people who want to go PvE, in player versus environment. So if you've got half of the group is interested in making party connections and social connections and positive interaction with the players and only going negative against the environment and the NPCs, and you've got another half of the group who is equally as entitled to that organization but really wants to throw chops against the other players, that can lead to a lot of hurt feelings, it can lead to a lot of schisms within the club, and yet if it's a larger community that has not established which one of those is the paradigm, as often happens with groups that grow organically, whether it's events or conventions or organizations, then those, learning that there's those challenges later on can be very challenging to deal with. And sometimes there isn't an option of, well, if you don't like it, leave, because both directly conflicting viewpoints are technically part of the group.
So here's a question for you on that. Do you think then that's a failing of that group or organization then to say, here's our dominant paradigm? We're okay with this, but this is the direction we're going to primarily support?
I think that, yes, it's a failing, but unfortunately when an organization grows organically without having addressed those issues right from the start, after a certain point it becomes difficult then to establish those things.
So essentially it becomes a part of that culture. It goes from etiquette, from this is established etiquette, to now we have just defined the organization's culture, and this is the dominant culture, or this is the culture.
Maybe.
Go ahead. If those establishments haven't been addressed early on because it's grown organically from a very small group to a 20-year, say, or 30-year organization, then it's very difficult later to go back and make those, because you are excluding a sizable portion of your group no matter which way you go. So the tendency that I've seen in a lot of the organizations is to continue with that paradox and hope for the best.
Where the problem is a part of the culture.
Exactly.
Yes.
I know you had a comment, Ben?
Well, I think it also depends on the level of the issue. Because we could talk about sort of specific to, your LARP group PvE versus PvP. But we're all humans, we all exist in society. Most of us here are from North America, and we are shaped by that culture. So when we talk about don't make assumptions, I'm operating under the assumption that I was raised with of, it would probably be rude for me to just start groping Randy right now. No matter how tempted I am, I really shouldn't do that.
And he would be quasi-right. I served 6 years in the military on a U.S. submarine. There were plenty of days where that was the norm. And the group I was involved with had a much lower standard for weird personal contact.
I guess where I'm going, though. Join the Navy, see the world. But we'll use PAX for an example. If I'm showing up at a table to play, a demo of Soda Pop Miniature's new game, I'm going to go with baseline American etiquette and then add geek culture on top of that. So I have some reasonable expectations already. If I show up to play a demo and you show up to play with me and you vomit all over me, I'm going to be a little offended if you don't at least say, I'm sorry. Or if I play the demo with you, you've managed to not vomit on me, and I kill you, I'm going to be a little bit freaked out if you start crying and breaking down. If you do not already understand the difference between this is a game and this is reality, you are failing. You need to already have that distinction before you show up.
That gives me a very good thing. I played a game. I have a very dear friend. There was a point in my life where I refused to play any games with him. Now I will game with him. And one of the most memorable games was a game of Battlestar Galactica that we had a dinner break in the middle of. He continued to go, I know you're a Cylon, you're totally a Cylon. I am determined to convince everybody here at the table eating dinner with us that you're a Cylon. I wasn't a Cylon, I'm never the Cylon. I haven't really played the game ever since because that experience was so bad. And he's a dear friend, and I was just like, I'm out, I can't finish this game because you won't shut up about it. That's bringing the game into reality.
Oh.
That basis of, here's the game table, we are getting up, we actually ate at a different table in a different part of the house. And then he took it with him, and he tried to continue playing the game when I just wanted to get food.
And that falls back to the host's responsibility to, hey dude, not cool.
Yeah, and we all tried to explain to him. He has learned, and this is one of those things of you give them a chance and keep trying to convince them. He is now a very good and it's one of those not so sure about social situations type of people. He's gotten way, way better, and I will play games with him again, just not that one.
There's a great term for that. It's called bleed, and I've experienced that personally, both negative and positive. And when that type of thing happens, one of the things I have found is best is if someone is able to. Usually, it's when it's negative bleed. It might be your character gets killed, and you're very attached to that character, and you feel this loss, like all this stuff I've worked for is suddenly gone. Is step back, and it's okay to pull a friend or somebody with you and say, can I just talk about this a bit? One of the things that I'm going to go into a bit of LARP here, the Nordic LARPers do, because they do a lot of games that are very cathartic and bring in a lot of emotion, is they do a debrief afterwards. And that seems to help a lot of people with that bleed issue. So that's something. I think on the etiquette part, it's understanding when bleed might be happening, and again, reminding someone of that, or if needed, say, dude, you need to chill. Yeah, dude, that's not cool.
And for anyone thinking that this sounds a little granola crunching hippie, this is actually a technique also used by some of the most competitive esports teams from Korea. And This is not necessarily, you know, a circle of singing Kumbaya. It can be as simple as just, okay, we've all had our match for the day. Everybody talk as a team. How'd you do?
Well, and being able to let go is being able to let go of your mistakes is part of helping. As long as you're doing it right, it can be what teaches you not to make the mistake again. Your negative learning, where man, he caught me out in the jungle. I knew I shouldn't have been there. I was too far forward at that point in the match. I had really upset, and eventually everybody's just tired of hearing it. They're like, well, learn from it, and please shut up now. We like you, learn from it, stop.
All right, I know we had another question over here.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Vandervoort. I'm actually from here in Seattle, just moved here.
Welcome.
Thank you. My question was kind of going back to the online community, that League of Legends was known for having one of the worst communities of online games for quite a while. And they took
something beat WoW in that?
Oh, amazingly, it was horrible community. And they took a lot of massive steps in the past couple of months to try and correct that. They saw that as one of the major failings of their game, and so I was just kind of curious opinions you guys had on the things they had done, and whether you saw that as successful, and whether this is something that you think other games should be trying to improve communities as a way to draw people to them.
Yes, your community is, I mean, it's everything in a game, unless it's a single player game. And even then now with, let's take Skyrim as an example. If you're playing it on Steam, they have the user created content. Even in single player games, you're getting a like everyone else is kind of interjecting things. If you're playing any multiplayer, or if you're going to a party, if you're going to anything, your community is everything. So if it gets caustic like some of those MOBAs have, you're driving away new players.
There's a lot of companies, and I'm putting my business hat on, there's a lot of companies that are realizing that and putting more money into the community aspects of their budget. So hiring more community managers, forum moderators, people who make sure behavior is policed within, and make sure that the rules are adhered to. I don't know about WoW, but I do know a lot about the League of Legends background. With all of the steps they took, they looked at their data, a lot of data, and that's one company that understands that really well. Big Fish Games, it's a casual game company. They spend a lot of money on community as well, because even though a lot of those games are single player, casual games, you play for us, it's like I play for 2 hours and did I get that my money's worth? But for people like my mother, she plays around 6 hours a day. She plays more games than I do on her DS and her computer. And they realized that they had a community, and when people got stuck on a level or wanted to talk about a good experience they had in the game, they didn't have that there. They started implementing it and their sales went up. So they're really, it's a bottom line thing that companies need to pay attention to.
Go ahead.
I'd say it's a question of what is your business strategy? Are you looking for a long-term, multi-year business that will be producing revenue, or are you trying to get your game out, make your money with its initial release, and then you're done? Because let's be honest, if I'm making my initial release and I have no intention of ever publishing a game again, screw you all. Buy my product, once I've sold my units, we're good. Now, realistically, very few people are ever going to say that, but it is tempting to take the short-term view. With Riot, I'm afraid I can't remember his name, but they banned one of very popular professional LoL players, and there was a little bit of community backlash because while he was seen as a somewhat toxic player, his skills were highly respected. And from what I've read, Riot's interpretation of the data was, okay, we could make some money right now via his matches and what he is promoting through his own skill right now. But if we take the long-term view, someone else will fill his shoes. There are enough good players out there. And yes, maybe we're going to lose tens of thousands of dollars right now this season if some of his fans go away. But think about it, because by maintaining him, you're sending a message to the community. This is tolerable behavior.
And
So yes. Oh, sorry.
there's also the loud minority. And a lot of the times where there's a lot of people saying, oh, I'm going to quit this because table flip, I don't like what you just said. They don't. They still buy our stuff.
99.9% of the people you game with are also there to have a good time. Occasionally, maybe take time out to help them have a good time. And over the course of your gaming life, I guarantee you will have a better time in the end.
Amber?
Don't hesitate to ask others, even if it's through a private message or a whisper to someone. Don't hesitate to ask someone who looks like they're in charge. And for those who are in charge, please try to provide some way of saying, here's, within context, here's what the expectations are, because that will go a long way as helping fix a lot of snafus.
Remember that wherever you are, you're part of a community, and that the health and wellness of the community is important. So don't think just about what's vital to you or what seems to be in your best interest at the moment.
She took mine.
All right, and the biggest thing is, etiquette is what you guys make it. So it's very important that each of you take the steps on your own to find out the etiquette of your gaming group, or to set the etiquette, because if you don't set it, someone else is going to end up setting it for you.